Joining me in studio is Phil Tagami, and listeners, I could easily say Phil is real estate developer. He's the mayor's representative for the Oakland-based Reuse Authority. He's a commissioner with the State Parks and Recreation, board of director member on the Crucible, and my personal favorite as a diver, he supports the Coral Reef Foundation. But Phil, I guess the short and skinny, what I would say to you first is thank you. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me, Tim. It's nice to be here.
For those who may not know you, or they know the public face of Phil Tagami, who are you, Phil?
That's a good question. I'm just a local boy who decided to focus on Oakland instead of where else in the world I might find myself. Mm-hmm. So at a young age, I looked outside of Oakland, and it didn't take me long to realize that all the things that I needed to make a life were here. So I decided to focus my energy on my community.
What is it in your background, Phil, that drives you to do this?
My father always instilled in us a need for hard work, duty, responsibility, but also to share and to give back. But short of that, I think it's really a series of choices. There's a former CEO of the Vanguard Group, wrote a book in 2005 called The Battle for the Soul, or The War for the Soul of Capitalism. And one of the stories he tells in the book is a reference to some hedge fund people having an argument over how little one author had made on his best-selling book over the course of his career, and how they made that equivalent in one day. Doing what they do. And the late Kurt Vonnegut was part of the conversation and turned to the hedge fund manager and said, well, that author has something that you will never have. And the hedge fund manager looked at him and very impetuously said, what could that possibly be? I have a $20 million home, I own a jet. And Kurt Vonnegut looked at him and said, that man has enough. We lose sight of what enough is in the context of our world. And I think that one of the checks and balances to having enough is realizing that there are those who don't. And being able to understand how your engagement in your community through your time, through your energy, through your expertise, can make a real difference and real change and make the place you live better. And so I think Oakland is only as good as the people who live there. I choose not to leave, I choose to stay. And therefore I have to look at myself as an indicator of how good Oakland is or isn't.
The Rotunda renovation, I think, would be one example of your giving back. Now, I really had no idea just how much work went into that. $50 million is one way to measure it. Tell us about that project. That's,
again, really, I think, a real joint effort. We are really in a public-private partnership with the City of Oakland. The city gets 50% of the upside over our cost basis in 20 years. So it's trying to find a way to respect the concept of leverage of redevelopment dollars, also of keeping the public trust whole and being value added. We worked with a very good team, and also there were probably 2,100 men and women who labored using their skills and their craft to restore that building. So it's really a cast of thousands. We have a plaque in the lower level of the building. We dedicated the building to the working men and women represented by about 21 different trade organizations, local unions, who really come to the building during holidays or during school vacations, bring their kids, tell their children that they worked on the building, and the kids, some teenagers I see, no you didn't, or you couldn't have, and then the parents will show them where their name is on the plaque, and then the kids pause for emphasis and realize that, oh wow, you really did. Your name's on this building.
You're being honored next week by the National Philanthropy Organization for fundraising for the Fox Theater. Tell our listeners who may not be that familiar with Oakland, what is the Fox Theater?
It was one of the premier theaters in Oakland. There were probably about 50 theaters in Oakland.
Okay.
With the advent of television, I would say within about a year, Oakland lost about 20 theaters. The Fox Theater closed on August 28th of 1966. My personal history really is that my parents had their first date there.
Okay.
1959. Yeah. It's a beautiful old theater. It's a Moorish themed deco theater from that period. In 1997, I put together a proposal, which was on, and about the same time I was negotiating with the city for the Rotunda building. At the completion of the Rotunda building, I had expressed interest again and was really told that I had done enough, I'd been involved enough, and that others needed an opportunity to participate or to do the project. The city went through a series of RFQs and RFPs and was really unable to find someone who was willing to respect the historic nature of the building, to work the building in such a way that it would be consistent with the Secretary of Interior standards, respect the preservation element of the general plan, respect the community, respect the goals and objectives of labor, help workforce development grow, help build capacity for local businesses. So, there were a lot of must-dos that were outside of the reach or the willingness of the marketplace. In about 2002, Jeff Chu, who was the project manager for the city, contacted me, wanted to revisit my 1997 proposal, how I wanted to finance the project, how I approached it. And my thinking had changed a little bit. I was really more focused on the Fox being a give back to the community, and in so much, I want to say, owned by the community. It's a cultural asset. Yeah. Cultural assets are a choice. We choose to have a zoo. We choose to have a museum. We choose to have libraries. These types of facilities indicates, I think, the health, the vitality, the promise, and the hope for a community. We look at the Fox Theater, the redevelopment agency stopped the decay of the building, and they allowed someone like myself to bring our team to bear to fix it. The goal was, in essence, to make a revenue-neutral project for the city, restore the cultural asset, respect all of our principles and values, and ensure that, at the end of the day, there would be something that we'd be proud of. Then Mayor Jerry Brown wanted to locate his art school for the performing arts there. We thought that was a good fit. I have to say that Friends of the Fox has been a very, very supportive organization. They've raised a great deal of money and are currently working very closely with ourselves and the School for the Performing Arts.
How do you choose the projects you get into?
Well, a project like the Fox Theater chooses you. We did not get into the Fox Theater project. We don't own the Fox Theater project. We have a role to play as part of a team, and our fee is less than our cost. So, that in essence is our mission with the Fox.
And now you've ventured into television. Tagami Vision, am I correct?
I believe in citizen journalism. I look at the Tagami Vision opportunity to focus on how we can make Oakland a better city, a healthier city. Do people know how the criminal justice system works? Do they understand how policing and crime affect the city? Who's responsible to address those issues in our city? And as we start to ask these questions, we are addressing really overcoming ignorance and trying to encourage people who know better not to do the wrong thing. I would often say there's ignorant, dumb, and stupid. Ignorant doesn't know but can, stupid knows but refuses to do it, and dumb just can't know. In our world, we deal mostly with ignorant and stupid. And I don't try to offend when I say those words. I think those words really illustrate the ability to cure some of our problems if we can, in fact, make sure that everyone's properly educated.
What would you say to our listeners in terms of giving back?
Well, I would say that there are many ways to give back. There's so many ways that people can engage and help, and those opportunities don't require an invitation. Participating in local government, attending city council meetings, becoming more informed. Being more informed is a way of giving back because an informed constituency, I think, leads us to a better society. I would encourage less reality TV and more reality. So ultimately, I think that I just encourage people to engage, to plug in, to question, be a little more Socratic. Who, what, why, when, where, how, never hurt anybody. So I think that if we can engage in that dialogue, it'll help us as a society.
As you know, listeners, I have to echo that thought. An educated investor makes the best decisions, and same for an educated citizen. Final question for you, Phil. What really matters?
What really matters? It's almost like, what's the meaning of life, right? That's a very individual, I think a very personal answer. So for me, it's creation. I think one of the greatest things you can do is be value added to the world, to society. Creation, I think, includes having children and raising them. It could be art, it could be music, it could be buildings, it could be legislation, it could be writing. So ultimately, I think what matters to me is creation. And so what's a value added proposition? There's a taking of the created product, and then there is an entitlement to the created product, and then there's the creation of the product. So for me, I think that I'm focused on the creation side of the equation. As difficult as that may be at times, I think that is the calling. And if service to the community is part of that calling, then I've signed up for that too.